3. But I didn't expect that... Well, for one thing, I didn't expect that... Oh, how am I coming through, by the way? Dragon?
Fine.
Foxo? Everything
Yeah,
fine for everybody?
fine.
No problems to report?
I wouldn't have said any problems.
I've had to go
it's
out.
horrible.
I've had to go out and buy a new mic, so I need confirmation that everything's going through all right.
Oh la la.
Yes.
Then I'll do some Forza with you in a bit then, Foxo, doing this.
Well, it's alright. No, to be fair, Dragon, it's okay.
Unfortunately,
No, it's okay. You two can go off. I have a guest coming. Cyclic's showing up.
I see.
So you two can go off and do Forza, I'm fine. I'll be okay.
Nah, we'll stick around.
If you
So
want
go
to.
for now, at least.
I'm not stopping you.
It's a case of... Given
No.
how much
No,
Zoom
RPG.
attention you're attracting.
Well,
Oh,
here's the thing.
no.
Well, for one thing, I didn't expect Dr. Clark's mother to be watching me, for one thing, but apparently she is a extremely regular viewer.
There's a
That's
lot of
dis-
things you
despite-
weren't expecting.
Yeah. Despite the fact that that knowledge is 2 weeks old in my brain, it still knocks me for 6 every time I think about it. Need to turn the light on first things first. Lean! There. Good. Right. And down sit.
What if the RN had used
Wait, what?
bad?
Okay,
Do you mean
well-
bad quality coal?
Okay. Well, first of all,
Coal,
yeah, I was about
right.
to say, like, using coke to fire steamships is not a good idea. Secondly,
Cocaine doesn't burn that
no,
well,
not
so-
that sort of. You are aware that coke is a smokeless fuel. Right,
Yes,
Foxo?
coke coal.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, not just Coca-Cola.
can I? Do you mind? Do you mind? Do you in fact mind?
Interpreter's asking why wouldn't you want to burn coke coal?
Well, because coke is it's got a yeah, basically too much carbon. It burns quite hot. I know that sounds like a good thing, but it's not when it comes to actual. Chris, I will actually refer you to Drakinifel's video. He has wargamed that scenario multiple times and created a very informative video. Look up the Battle of Texel. It's an older Drac video, but he does it far better than I could. So I always like if it's something Drax covered, I always direct people to Drax Answer because it's far better than I
Makes sense.
could do it. Let me just think. Where was it? Oh yeah. So, bad quality coal. You'd basically have reduced performance. Reduced performance on the vessels of the Grand Fleet. You'd have less steaming.
Beyond that, though, I don't think anything would change, would it?
You would have more downtime for maintenance. You'd have to declinker the boilers a lot more often, replace the fire grates a lot more often. You'd probably have to replace your stokers a lot more often.
Tiger and Royal would also be completely, possibly New Zealand would be completely out of action.
It's unlikely, but they'd be hell to work in for the stokers. Like, you could make them work. They'd lose perhaps a knot or two of speed, but you can make them work.
Right. It's one of the peculiarities of Tiger is that she had a very hot burn temperature. Whatever the fuck it's called.
When you leave a Brent carrier and a KV-2 alone in the garage. Automatic stokers are well past. Well, first off, automatic stokers never really took off on warships. Well, basically, by the time you would put automatic stokers aboard warships, they were oil-fired, so there was no point. But yeah, you could use automatic stokers to improve coal supply and make a coal-fired ship easier to run. I mean, obviously, your maintenance requirements do go up, because it's another mechanical component to the ship, but it would make a coal-fired ship easier to run, and would enable you to run at higher speed for longer, although you would have to declinker the fires fairly regularly. If you were running at high speed, although one way to get around that would be to powderize the coal, as we see in coal-fired power plants around the world today. and basically turn it into oil firing, but with coal. Would automatic stokers improve the water quality of the Trent? Well, no, obviously not. If you replace the Bayern's power plant with pure oil-fired boilers, where would you put in the saved weight? I have no idea, because I have no idea how much weight it would save. I'd have to go off and run design calculations, for which I am not qualified, nor have the resources on hand to do, I'm afraid. What I would use the weight for depends entirely on how much weight that would save. And I do not know. Because if it's a lot of weight, I could invest in, say, more armor, improved hull form, any number of things. But if it's a small amount of weight, then I don't know, you get an extra pair of secondary guns. Can this work? Well, okay, that ship can work. It's a workable design that in theory functions. However, there are a lot of problems with that design. And there's a reason why it was dropped / abandoned. Like I said, it works, but as a design it's not really practical. Although Southerner would like it, since it has no superstructure. And that man's obsessed with just destroying superstructure. Who will win? That's not even a contest. That's not even a meme. That's a gunboat versus the most powerful battleship ever built.
But in the idea of Eurocat, the gunboat wins, because the gunboat's much cheaper to maintain.
No. 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 Darcidis asks, how dangerous were the nation's own mines, their own navy during World War One? Not very.
Very.
You'd usually have the whole point of a minefield is that you know where it is. Now, if you have mines that have drifted, then they're at that point they're no longer on anyone's side. Which means they're very dangerous. But if they're in minefields and you know where the minefields are and you've laid them yourselves, then you're fine.
Unless one breaks free.
Yeah, that's as I said. At that point, it's not anyone's mine. It's a soldier of fortune.
Yeah, I think I'm wrong, but didn't both sides hit their own airdrop minefields at times?
That's World War II.
So,
We're talking about World War One.
World War II. And
Yeah.
World War One, similar thing with submarines.
Occasionally, but very, very
Both
rarely.
sides were highly concerned about running into their own minefields. And even when they were going through known channels, formations were still typically led by minesweepers ahead of them to ensure that the channel was actually clear. Because even if a mine doesn't break free, what if the mooring cable's a little too long?
Mm.
What if the mine layer drifted off course slightly?
Yep. Or maybe the anchor didn't catch in the right position because somebody who operates boats will know. Anchors don't always catch where you expect them to catch. In fact, more often than not, they don't.
Brackman asks, how hard is it to keep the oil refineries and storage tanks safe in the 1940s? I don't understand the question.
Do you mean like from bomber attack?
Yeah, or are you saying, are there any oil refineries and storage tanks left from that period that are preserved? I mean, that question can be read a number of ways. Like, I'm happy to answer it once I know what the question is. CJ asks, okay, I'll make it better, Fleet. Who will win, 2,000 gunboats or 1 Yamato? 1 Yamato, because quite frankly, she doesn't even need to fire her guns. She can literally run them all over, and they can do literally nothing to her. I mean, literally nothing. And if at any point she feels like she's getting swamped, she just ramps up to full power and runs away laughing over the horizon. and there's nothing they can do. Riverine craft do not engage blue water warships unless the conditions are incredibly precise and overwhelmingly favourable to the craft. The Riverine craft.
Taking Darth Sidious's question here, if I may.
Sure.
Well, to put it simply, worse for Japan, because it would have delayed the U.S. offensive beginning by a little bit longer. Also, Fleet, take a look from Alex there.
Sorry.
And if you're Japan,
I'm sorry,
the last
Dr.
thing
Clark. I'm looking.
the last thing you want to do as Japan is prolong the war. You're still gonna get, smacked to crap by the Essexes. And the situation is only going to get worse for you. In terms of the bombing campaign, in terms of what's being dropped on you, in terms of the naval campaign. The USN could replace its pilots, it could replace its ships. Even losing, if the Japanese took that amount of losses to their torpedo squadrons, when eventually the US gets around to Guadalcanal, it actually could be an easier carrier fight, because the Japanese are that bad at replacing losses. They're that bad at it.
That's about right. Your typical gunnery officer asks, what if Saratoga wasn't so unlucky in 42-43 and she didn't spend most of her time in dry dock or repairs and could take part in Coral Sea, Midway, and most of the Guadalcanal carrier battles? Do you think she would be sunk in one of these battles, or do you think she would survive the war like IRL?
Well, she took part in the Guadalcanal campaign, and she got torpedoed by Japanese submarines in the Guadalcanal campaign, but she was big enough she could make it back to be repaired. So the problem with the Guadalcanal campaign, she really probably wouldn't have changed anything at Coral Sea because of the scouting issues for both sides. I mean, she might have divvied up, caused the Japanese to divvy up their strike a little bit more, maybe not, because there would have been two really big carriers. She was big enough she could. Midway probably would not have made a meaningful difference, if I'm honest, because Midway was a fairly clean sweep outside of Yorktown, but even then, still a pretty clean sweep. And in the Guadalcanal campaign, I mean, she participated. She gets torpedoed there and has to retire to be repaired. She comes back, right? And it's not like that was a carrier thing, that was a submarine issue, because of the route the U.S. Navy had to take to get in. The Japanese put their submarines out there to go after convoys, to go after groups of warships, just to try to interdict and provide warning. So also, sorry I was a little late showing up. I had to explain to Ship's Talk just how many munitions a U.S. nuclear-powered carrier can deliver a day.
Oh, that's very much like you.
I just had to find a quote from a 60 Minutes interview.
CJ asks, who will win, Great Eastern or HMS Victory? Great Eastern, because she will just run HMS Victory down and cleave her in
Yes,
two.
she could. Yeah.
I don't care how many guns Victory has at this point, or how armed she is, or how good her crew is. Great Eastern is the size of a Washington Naval Treaty era battleship. She's so big, so massive. And
It's point bow towards enemy and full speed ahead. Like,
she's just like she won't even feel Victory breaking across her bow. That's how big she is. And the momentum she'll be carrying at that point will just be the.
she'd notice.
Okay, probably. But still, it's more just a.
It's a lot of drag.
Well done. You had me going there for a moment.
No, like, she would feel the deceleration, but...
Yeah. But there would be very little... Like, it's important to remember that Great Eastern hit and was hit by a lot of warships, and the grand total of damage usually amounted to... So, warships and ships generally during her career. Both as her small career as a liner and merchant ship, and her much, much longer career as a cable layer. And during that time, she was hit a lot of vessels. And it amounted to a grand total of... replace a few bits of hull plating and put the paint back on.
Yeah, a rock did literally more damage than them to her.
Yeah, because, well, underwater protection wasn't really a thing. Which is...
Actually, you could argue that for quite a long time, Great Eastern had very good underwater protection by most standards.
Being big helps with that.
Yeah.
And she was also double hulled, which was
True.
not a thing at the time.
Yeah, Brunel really went all out with that monster. Your typical gunnery officer asks, do you think the US could have prevented the destruction of the Cherbourg port after Operation Overlord by advancing quicker than IRL?
No, it was wired. They were driving as pretty much as hard as they could to get Cherbourg.
What forces were advancing on Cherbourg? Was it mostly a US effort? Just generally, I'm not asking
Yeah,
specifics.
the US beaches were the closest.
Yeah.
They drove pretty hard for Cherbourg. The problem is trying to capture a port intact like that when